order. And where did that agenda go? Okay, so our major focus tonight is.
Oops. I think we just lost him.
To be continued.
That's the reason for two co-chairs. I'm pretty sure he was going to say major focus was the open space index preparation, but are there additions and changes to the agenda? Okay, and then CJ, are we not doing public comment? I noticed it wasn't on the agenda template that we got. Do you know if there's any?
There's generally not too much reason for public comment to CAC. I mean, people, of course, can always send emails to us, of course, and we'll pass them on.
That's fine. Back to you, Tom.
Yeah, sorry about that. So yeah, I assume nobody's in the waiting room. Okay.
Nope, no one's here.
So let's get going on the open space index work session. There were a couple of things sent out. Should we start with the people who they're interested in speaking to?
Sure.
They sent us a list, and the people that they are recommending, they didn't include everybody that was on the list, which I guess is fine. But I wanted to know if anybody had any other recommendations for people that they should contact.
Tom, on behalf of Ed DeBovie, he really wanted to put forward David Fernandez, and he had quite a few reasons for that. One of the reasons was, because he's involved in business in the town. It has been for 40 years, and especially with the purchase of Baker's Acres. And then he owns additional undeveloped acreage in the town and the county, and is a member of the Finger Lakes Land Trust Board and a good citizen. And so anyway, he just wanted to put his name back in the hat. I think it was in there the first round.
Yeah, it was on the original list, so we can recommend that to them.
Yeah, maybe Karen and John can shed some light on that, as to whether there were reasons why he might be a duplicate or something.
Not major reasons. I guess we just don't know him as well as Ed did in terms of what his experience is.
Yeah, and I think we also said, given two people who were selling landscape plants, Dan Siegel being the sort of having a very ecological angle, and Dave Fernandez. I mean, I understand Ed's argument for having him on, and I think it's fine. I didn't realize that he also had such an active land conservation ethic, so I think it's a great idea.
Okay.
Yeah, and I hate to muck up the system with more names, but Pete Larson is a lifelong Lansinger who has kind of a weird niche farm and thinks a lot about some of these things. I know, John, do you know Pete at all?
Yeah, just a little bit from the ag committee.
I think he's a thoughtful guy and not a pushy guy, but might be an interesting person to consider.
Is there anybody else that we think should be included?
Looks like they were trying to stick to 5 to 6, but given that not everybody's going to be able to come, and whatever, I think it's fine to have a little wiggle room there. And I already mentioned to Gay Nicholson that she'd be probably getting a call. So I think, at this time of the year, giving people as much of a heads up early, the better.
Yeah, I mean, my guess is they won't get everyone, so maybe it's not the end of the world to have a couple of duplicates.
So John and Karen, you helped put that list together, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I mean, we had the list, and then we just sort of grouped the list into categories,
Mhm.
and then talked about like who would be our first choices and who would be our secondary suggestions.
Nice job.
Yeah, it's very good.
Would one of the two of you want to get back to either Katie or John and let them know of these two other names?
So I can get in touch with them, Dave Fernandez and Pete Larson.
Okay.
Pete's been very active on solar issues, right?
Yeah.
He's
Yeah,
got
that's
some
on his big
strong-
list.
strong opinions on that. And I think I actually think that is an excellent perspective. To
Yeah, I think
have.
he's kind of in between Skip and the Munsons.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know the Munsons at all, but
The way they're described is spot on.
oh, I see. Uh-huh.
Okay, so we're okay with that list then, and adding those two names.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I guess my only parting comment is, CJ, is there some glaring omission from where you sit as you look at the list?
I don't think so. I added a few names and some of them were, concurrent with what you all had recommended too. So, yeah, if you guys are satisfied with it, that's great.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and really the list looks fine even as is. So no major concern.
I didn't know if Andrew was going to say something or not. Andrew, your box lit up, but
Oh, no, I'm just listening. I read it all and I looked at the lists and I think it has a good cross section of people. I think it's fine.
awesome.
Okay, so do we want to go through their communications and outreach strategy?
Sure.
It sounds good on paper. Does anybody have any objections or concerns or want to add to it?
I read it pretty quickly, so I didn't get into all the nitty gritties, but it looked pretty much like what they presented to us at the last meeting.
Yeah.
And I only skimmed through it also. I'm wondering if, because this has happened a couple of times, I think for those of us who are working, probably having more than a 24-hour turnaround to take a look at things would be preferable. So if we could maybe pass on to Katie and John, it would be really good to get stuff by Tuesday so that we can give it really adequate perusal.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting. I tweaked them actually a couple weeks ago and just said, materials for the meeting and where are you at? And could you give us an update? And it took a bit of time. John had COVID and so he apologized. And then they said they would get us to us early this week. And I got it yesterday afternoon, but I didn't check my email. So that's why you got it this morning. But I agree, Karen, it would be good to have a little more time.
No, I think I got it last night. They sent it around. It was.
Yeah, it came in yesterday afternoon from Katie. Yeah. But
So
that
I
was
think you
just
forwarded it. You forwarded it a second time.
you and me. Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, still my ongoing question about the outreach plan is what they're not doing and what's falling on us, and what our capacity is realistically to get out there and you know, show up at these, you know, whatever. I mean, I just can't even imagine sitting in front of the Lansing market for 3 hours in the sun trying to engage people. That, you know, that sort of thing. I don't have a whole lot of time for that, and I'm worried that most of us probably don't also, and that some really important information is going to get missed. And I know it's a, you know, it's a dollars and cents issue, and we can't hire somebody to do all of that work for us, but I have more questions than comments on how that'll play out.
I think doing something at the Lansing market is a good idea.
Are you willing to sit there for hours and hours?
I'd be willing to sit there for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I probably can't, so.
Does anybody have a kid selling Girl Scout cookies? They seem to be there for a long time.
Yeah, so that's, I'm just wondering if anybody else is having concerns around how to do what we are expected to do to supplement their outreach.
I have some concerns, and I've been gently tweaking and prodding some other folks, especially those who couldn't come to the meeting. When they wrote in to say they couldn't come, I was like, well, would there be a chance you'd be interested in the parade and the carnival in September? And so actually Ed DeBovie said he's willing to help out with that. I'm assuming that's what they are referring to with their pop-up event, but that's a question that I had.
Yeah, that's the only one they have scheduled, as
Yeah.
Okay.
far as I understand it.
Is the parade and the carnival is the same event? Or I know it's the carnival, and they were talking
Parade
about
the day
getting
before.
a table or something, right?
The parade is part of the carnival.
Oh, okay.
And is it the day before, Andrew? I think it
No,
goes
I thought it was the same day.
same day. Oh, okay. I thought there was a 2-day span.
Yeah, I think that's right. Well, the carnival may be more than one day.
I think I read 23rd and 24th or something, or 25th and 26th. Let me look it up. So I think I forwarded that to folks.
I'm going to be gone that weekend, so I'm not going to be around.
Yeah, 23, 24 of September. Lansing Parade and Carnival.
And I will likely be very busy at that point too.
It sounds like the parade will be Saturday at 6 p.m. starting at Woods Edge.
Right. And I mean, I don't see us having a.
Yeah, the
presence
parade,
in that.
I don't think we have anything to do with the parade. We're going to be at the carnival.
I mean, we could if we wanted to, you know, like, John, I'm sure you wouldn't mind us borrowing your tractor and pulling a hay wagon and throwing little squishy world balls out to the.
As long as I have an extra one.
But so is the idea then that they would put together some sort of a booth that would be inside the carnival, not like by the parking area, and they're going to have, I mean, they need to really make a splash, right? So they, you know, they're going to have a banner and they're going to have all of this stuff, or are we supposed to take care of that, or what?
Well, let's ask them that.
Really good to know that.
I'll make a note of it.
It would seem that they would at least have to have a canopy and a table. Canopy so you don't roast alive. And a table for materials. But I'm not sure what else they need unless they're going to offer enticements for people coming over. Give them a free popsicle or something. I don't know.
I think just set up next to the beer garden and there'll be plenty of traffic.
That would probably work.
And is this an opportunity, because they're gonna do one event, so are we planning on them doing a different one or this one? I guess would be the question for them.
I think we could get a sort of a thumbs up on the whole thing, but they put the question to us last time as the CAC, thinking that this would be our pop-up event. And they got a sort of a general nod of approval. But it would be good to just finalize that tonight, because I think they're looking for, oh yes, this is it.
That they staff or that we staff?
Well, my sense is that they are gonna actually staff
what
it and that
that's
we
what I
are gonna
thought.
support them. Yeah, yeah, they staff, we support.
That's better.
John,
Oh,
go ahead, CJ.
I was just gonna ask, whether you're sure you want them to do this event, and maybe that's what John was alluding to as well. And the reason I'm asking is because Bergman Associates has also been retained by the town to conduct a public information campaign relative to the new highway department renovation project as well, which I'm anticipating will run in September and go to a vote to town board in October. So I'm just trying to think of the timing relative to that. And then I figure their staff capacity, they have plenty of staff, but just thinking about that too.
So would that mean that they could potentially have two tables there? One for, okay.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking.
So
I'm not sure Mikey Mosley is going to be, highway superintendent will be coordinating that, but I can certainly been trying to think of, just not oversaturating people on public engagement. I'm trying to stagger those a little bit. So, and just also being mindful that they've indicated that they're only going to do one pop-up event.
So John and Katie are they involved with the highway department thing?
So John is, as well as Steve Kushner, he's the architect on the project. So I'd anticipate maybe Katie would be doing the open space index outreach, and perhaps maybe John would be going back and forth. So.
Well, I think if you want to get a lot of different types of people to get comments from, that would be as good a place as any, is the carnival.
Yeah, I just really want their focus to be on the open space plan and not trying to double dip and, like every other person that they encounter, they'll be talking about the open space plan and the other half are highway department. I mean, I really want their attention to this. So I don't think saturating people with Bergman, nobody's going to remember that it's Bergman. They're going to be remembering that they're asked their opinions about something. And I don't think they're likely to connect the highway department questions with open space, but it's just me.
I didn't mean to suggest that people get tired of Bergman per se, just that I was thinking about the different public engagement process kind of running concurrently, and then zoning coming as well, although I anticipate that would be in the month after that.
My sense was, when we talked about it before, people felt like it was going to provide a good cross section of Lansing, and a lot of people with a sort of a narrow opening to the venue where they wouldn't be able to come at it from multiple directions and avoid the table. I think that was you, Karen, like thinking, oh, if we do it, music in the park, people can kind of, they may not be able to pay much attention. And admittedly, there are going to be plenty of distractions at the carnival, but I think folks do tend to come by the tables.
I've never been to the carnival before.
Me either.
Frightening.
Now's your chance.
Yeah, there you go, Karen.
I
Yeah,
think they
the-
definitely have to give something out for free, whether it's food or something. Otherwise, people won't stop by the
Hmm.
table.
Andrew, maybe you could sit there and sign pictures of yourself for them.
Oh, sure.
For your hat collection.
No, that's worth something.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I went to the concert in the park this last Thursday. I think that'd be a tough place to do a pop-up. I mean,
Yeah.
the band starts playing 20 minutes before they're supposed to go on. I just don't know where, and people are spread out all over that space, so it would have been a hard place to draw people into a point to talk to you. So, and it's loud.
Yeah.
Do we want to designate a couple people to check in with John and Katie about some of these details? I mean, I've been taking a few notes. I'm willing to have a call with them. Karen, I don't know if you have time for a
Yeah,
call.
I mean, since I can check in with them. I mean, since I've already volunteered to talk to them about Pete and Dave on the ag focus group. Could we just do a quick rehash of what the sort of high order questions are about, their staffing, a table, what format will the table be? Are they going to be asking people to fill out surveys there? Is that part of it?
Possibly, that was my sense.
Mhm.
To
Or
Andrew's
at least-
point, what will they give away?
Swag, is this concurrent with highway department outreach?
Well,
Yes.
is the highway department going to be at the carnival?
Everybody but Karen's
That's
there
a
every
good
year.
question.
What's that?
I said everybody but Karen is there every year. So,
No, Dave and I have other plans.
I know. Just that one.
yeah, Karen, I think the most important thing is, are you taking care of this? And we recommend swag.
Yeah.
And if they're not taking care of it, we said, well, we understood that you were. I think we don't even entertain the fact that any of us want to go sit at a booth. And I don't think it would be good for the project actually either.
Mhm, mhm.
If somebody who looks like they have a vested interest in the outcome of the project there. So anyway, this is my 2 cents.
Yeah, I mean, I know, Todd, you and I would stand out like the sorest hippie thumbs in the batch, but
Thanks, Karen. Yeah, you're right.
I know.
Has anybody seen what they're going to hand out? I mean, the phrase open space index means pretty much nothing to most people, I assume.
Yeah.
So do they have some clever or creative way of, in a very short attention span, getting across to people? Anybody looked at that, or we just leave it up to them and say they did their pop-up?
I think that's all we can do, Dave. I think we asked them to do this. They implied they knew what they were doing. That's why we
Okay.
hired them. Unless you would like to be the editor.
No. I thought we gave them, we got $60,000, right? They
That's
go,
what I
"Here's
think too. Yeah, they should be able
$60,000."
to
So if you
do
give me
this.
$60,000, I might do it.
Okay, same. I think I'm on that same gravy train.
Yeah, who would have ever thought that would be the combat pay?
So they're going to attend the next CAC meeting, and that's going to be before the carnival. So
And
I think we can hash all of this out if we don't do it beforehand at the next meeting.
or if we do decide, to touch base with them right before the next meeting, Karen, you and I are the liaisons. You could see what you find out and maybe report back to us, maybe let them know that Ed is willing to be helpful. Not sure about Robin. I checked in with her to see if she was willing, but she may have already kind of signed off by then.
So Ed is willing, Ed DeBovie is willing to sit at the table with them?
Well, willing to help with the event.
Okay.
He didn't go into detail, but he did say he would need really good materials and would have to be really clear on the messaging, so that when he sits there and people say, are my taxes going to go up because of the OSI, that he has a very clear answer for them.
Mhm. Okay.
So yeah, so if you're willing to check in, great. And then, you know, obviously they'll be at our next meeting, but if they want to talk like right before
Mhm.
then about a few little things, that'll be fine.
So in general, Carrie, is it better to sort of go to the top and try to reach John, or is, do you have more luck reaching Katie?
Well, Katie's been very responsive. Maybe that's because John was sick, but she's the one, you know, who actually sent out the materials to us. And I've just been emailing both of them.
Yeah, because I think what I'll probably do is say, hey, we've got a list of questions, and rather than email the questions, I think I just want to give them a heads up that you and I, that we should have a four-way conversation. Just
Okay.
I'm looking at their timeline here, and it looks like August is the month that they're going to be doing the stakeholder interviews. So are John and Karen, are you involved with that at all at this point?
No.
So it's up to them. So that's another thing we might want to ask them about, is their schedule for that.
Well, I think that that's what that list was, you know, that's what the list was that they sent us. And I think they've got all the contact information for everybody on there. And so
Okay.
they'll just have things the way they need to.
And John, you guys are mostly haying during August, is that right? I'm trying to think your work conflicts.
In August, it'll only be like the third week in August when we'll be haying, hopefully.
Okay,
The weather
So-
cooperates.
so that's not a terrible month to choose. If you
No,
want- Okay. I noted the hesitation, but that's fine.
So in reviewing their overview, what did they say about getting a survey information from, you know, from the mass of the town? You know, they were talking about doing something online and also sending something out. Is that right?
they were gonna actually do some direct mailings, but then they're saying they're gonna have on the town website a place where you can get on and do the survey.
So,
Somehow they've got to make sure a lot of people know that that's there,
right.
Yeah, for sure.
which at the pop-up event, they're also talking about handing out something that would direct them to that website so that they wouldn't necessarily have to stand, fill out a survey at the carnival itself.
Mhm.
Just wondering also whether we should be thinking about a sort of a tiered system for dissemination of that information. So, you know, should we be going around and putting up posters on the bulletin boards in the church saying, care about your, you know, the future of open space in Lansing, and have like either tear offs or little slips of paper with push pins in so people could grab them and go. Because it's great that it's going to be on the town's webpage, but like, who more than like 5 people looks at the town's webpage every week? You know, it's
Mhm.
you have to have a reason to go there.
You're generous by saying 5, Karen, but
Well, I mean, it's like, it's so badly designed, honestly. It's so hard to find anything on it.
but yeah, I think any kind of outreach we can dream up that doesn't take much time is a good idea. And they also have this like story map, and so it was unclear whether there was kind of a pre-story map survey and then like another one that comes with the story map. I don't know.
I don't think so. I think the story map is the synthesis of what they gather.
Okay, so they're not looking for feedback then at that point.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Well, it'd be nice to see what they're going to send out for a survey to the masses.
And are they going to run that by us first? I think that would be, I'll add that to our list of questions.
And the timing of that too. I'm not sure where on their timeline that fits in. Unless it's under inventory and analysis. Or if they have data collection on their that's existing conditions.
Well, they have online engagement is on there someplace, I think, if I remember right.
Let's see, online engagement. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, that was supposed to start in July and go all the way to the end.
2 to 16 months. They got that narrowed right in.
Yeah.
I mean,
But what about mailing stuff to people for a survey?
I
Yeah,
don't
I
think
didn't see that.
was part of it. Does the plan say something about that? That's a big expense, even if they go bulk mail. I mean, just getting the sticker labels on is huge.
So there's no mailed out survey.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just noticing that now. I think I thought they mentioned that in their presentation last week, but maybe I'm remembering wrong.
CJ, do you remember?
I'm not seeing anything in here about a mailing. They say community survey and then they say map-based survey as well. I don't see anything in paper.
Yeah, maybe what I'm remembering is that they said that was expensive and hard to do. And that might be what I'm remembering. Which they're correct. That's quite an investment.
I'm not seeing anything in their original materials about a mailing.
Okay, so no mailing.
So the only general survey is going to be online.
Yeah, I'm thinking back on this. I think somebody mentioned that there may be people without great access to internet. So we broached the subject, but I think Carrie's right. I don't think they actually ever agreed to propose that.
Or if maybe there's a subset sample of the population, that would be one way to get around some of the expense.
It sounds like we need clarity around the survey because I'm just looking at their chart here of outreach and engagement, and I'm missing it, I guess. I don't even see the survey on here.
All I see is online engagement, and that's supposed to be through the whole period.
I think that's it. But
So
I guess that's the question is please define online engagement.
yeah.
And I guess the other question would be, when is it going to actually be up since we're kind of getting deep into their 2 to 16 months.
Mhm.
Well, it seems like the survey is pretty important aspect of this whole thing. If you're interested in what, what people think.
Right, and Tom, you're thinking that that survey is going to be handed out at the pop-up event? Or, because I don't
I
see,
guess, but that's still a limited population.
and I just don't see them mentioning it. They say informal discussion, inform residents, solicit public input. So maybe that's what we need clarity on, whether that means survey.
So yeah, it was, so is the pop-up event casual, or is there a structured format to it?
Okay,
Yeah, I think the term pop-up kind of implies that it's a little bit organic and spontaneous, but I don't know.
People really have to have a reason to want to talk to these people, and having a 2-minute survey is, at least that's a focus, but having like an open-ended conversation, I think is, I don't think people are as motivated for that, but that's just, I don't know. I've never done one of these.
maybe we can get some clarity. It sounds like we're gonna need to have a pretty good talk with them, Karen.
Mhm.
And-
Yeah, I've got a long list.
Yeah,
Well, if they're only going to have an online survey, then somehow somebody has to get the information out to the Lansing at large that there's an online survey, that if you're interested in open spaces in Lansing and their future, go to this website.
mhm.
Curious the timing of the survey. Because they do talk about public meeting number 1, it does say town advertised public meeting, and then there's also a second one. And it's saying they'll create meeting advertisement presentation materials. I mean, we could probably get a simple mailer out directing people to the information if we had enough time to plan for it. So it kind of depends on how, in what way you want to contact people and when. If it is paper, like you want to send a postcard, we could, the department could manage at least one for you. But if you can think about the timing of that, kind of what you want to communicate, like, do you want to send it to get survey input? Do you want to send it to kind of announce results? Do you want to send it more towards the end to announce the project? Kind of, we could do at least one mailer over the course of the project. Whatever you guys want it for, we can kind of put our heads together on that.
Yeah, actually, this is coming back now because we discussed this with Bergman and they said it's expensive. And I think CJ, you said, you know what, the town could help a little.
Yeah, I mean, we can, we can use that, like, what's it called? The EDDM, where you can just say, like, you can send like a simple postcard. It's nothing too snazzy, but like a black and white piece, maybe with like some kind of short link, to just kind of direct people to the survey, or, whatever you think, or, whether you want it to be for the survey or whether you'd want it to come later, kind of what would be the biggest bang for the kind of mailing buck, I suppose, that you want to communicate. And whatever that is, we can make that happen.
I think getting public input is really important.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that's what we should send out, asking people to. Then if everybody complains about this thing, we can ask them, well, did you fill out the survey, and did you have any input? I mean,
I agree, Tom, that it's really great to put our energy into that. And then we can get the word out about the rest of the project other ways. They're going to have these charrettes and things, but we do need input.
I don't know, are they having charrettes?
Well, it's, what is it called? They don't use that word, but.
But like multiple ones? I think
Well,
just one.
let's see, community open house, where they present a draft plan. See, they're gonna need their data before that. They have number 1 and number 2. So I guess I see that as an opportunity to present and get feedback. But they will already have drafted some things by then.
Yeah, I mean, I think that these are 2 distinctly different phases. Like, we really want them to be able to get a broad representation of ideas that the town has, and the focus groups are great, but that's also just 25 people maybe. And I don't know, it would be great to have a broad swath of input prior to the thing that they present, and then get, you know, pushback to, you know, like, I don't want to have them get surprised by all this new information that, you know, they show up with this like almost fully gestated plan. Like, people say, oh, you didn't ask us, you know.
Okay, well, that's, point that out to them, that we really want to get public input from the whole town.
Sure.
I mean,
Okay.
that seems key to this thing,
Mhm.
if it has any legitimacy.
Well, and I think it was one of the criteria that made us lean towards Bergman in the first place. So, I mean, I think that probably they're doing this, but they're just kind of light on details right now.
All right.
Well, they have a public meeting at the end of September, it looks like, according to their time frame, and that's not that far away.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So are there any more comments about the outreach, communications and outreach strategy? My one thing I noticed, said under local stakeholders, the consultant team will conduct up to 4 interviews with either individuals or groups identified by the CAC and town staff.
Right. Those are the focus groups that we have that.
1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Okay. So that's what they're referring to,
Yeah.
the focus. Okay. Okay. Well, that was my big question.
Do we know if those are in person or virtual?
I don't think we know. Do we need to know? I mean, in person's better probably, but
Yeah, and they may be asynchronous also, you know, depending on how time goes.
Mhm.
Or maybe, you know, if people aren't able to come to a set date, they, John, we talked about this a little bit, I think, at that meeting, that they can also just send the focus group questions to people if they can't make it to the group gathering. You know, there's obviously going to be you know, some interesting synergy amongst the group members, and I think that, like, I would love to be a fly on the wall at those meetings, but, you know, if that doesn't work, it doesn't rule out input from folks.
Right. Yeah, because I think they were willing to contact some people individually if it was necessary. I would hope, because otherwise, why did we make a list of 25 people if they're only going to talk to a handful of them? So.
Okay, do we have anything more to say about this project for now?
I'm good.
The
Okay,
only
well,
thing I'm just gonna add, one cool thing that we could consider is, maybe doing like an expert panel as part of this as well, like some of the people from the focus group kind of talking about their experience, with conservation. That could be really interesting, to the public as well. They can have like sometimes, the county's done these things from time to time with things like housing, like a summit or something like that. That could be very interesting. Just an idea.
I think the timing for this is really amazing because there's so much buzz and so much excitement over Bell Station. And, I've been there twice in the last 4 days. It's so awesome. And, I think it's really giving, a very dramatic story that people have in their current mind frame about endangered places and what that means on large and and notably on smaller scales. So I'm super pleased that this is happening right now.
okay, and anything else regarding the open space situation?
Good feedback. Good ideas.
Okay,
Good question.
well, let's move on to reports then. Andrea, would you like to say anything about what's going on with the town board?
As far as what connects to the CAC, I mean, everybody was very happy that David wanted to be on the county one, and of course it was a unanimous vote. But there wasn't any other discussion that I think
Okay,
relates to us, to the CAC.
okay.
Unless CJ can think of something else, but I didn't note anything.
Anything recent with the big solar farm on the border?
We talked about it, and didn't we, CJ, hire another law firm to look at the different site?
Yep, you got it.
The election?
That's right. So the town is in the process of essentially getting professional services for the review of these projects, because we anticipate that these applications, are going to go to the Office of Renewable Energy Siting, in Albany, right? And they're going to be issuing siting permits for the project. That the town is not going to have discretionary review authority over the project, right? So we're anticipating to basically get, an environmental impact statement for these projects that we're going to have to review pretty quickly, because the timelines are really abbreviated. That was kind of the big push to move from the previous process that the state had to this kind of more expedited, Office of Renewable Energy siting process. So we're retaining both legal counsel through Harder, Seacrest, Emery. They have great background in environmental law. And then we're also coming up in the meeting on the 17th. The town board is still considering, of course, retaining Labella Associates for engineering and environmental review as well. So we just, even our trusted advisors, town engineers, TG Miller, don't have the capacity to kind of drop everything and dig into a full EIS for a project of this scale. So in any event, that's kind of the short version of that.
So CJ, should we then hold off on any kind of commentary? I think everybody's probably seen that solar farm sits right on top of a very highly rated unique natural area, and it's a wetland, and so there's hydrologic sensitivity there. They're now talking about drilling under it to run the lines, and I know nothing about what that means. And maybe Todd, maybe you have some thoughts on that. Like, how deep do they go when they directionally drill conduit? Or I don't even know what it means.
I don't know exactly, but my guess is it's not very deep.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is the sort of thing you're supposed to get the electric company out there to make sure they look at before you get a backhoe out there. So this is, a few feet is what we're looking at, I think. Again, if these are really high power lines, maybe there's a different depth and different types of conduit, but it's a little bit outside my wheelhouse.
Yeah. Do you think that we should try? I mean, just assume that Labella will find wetland experts to do that work, or should we be talking to people ourselves?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, CJ. So is the solar farm going on top of a wetland, or is it above a wetland, like upslope of a wetland?
We have maps that I've seen of a gigantic area in which this is going to sit, but they have not. There's no specificity in terms of like where the panels are going to go, but stuff would be crossing the wetland that much. Like, I don't think that the panels would be likely to be sitting on, open water or anything, but I think that a lot of the infrastructure would be crossing it.
Yeah, and again, that's I don't know exactly what the impacts of a power line going under a wetland would be, but we could ask somebody who knows more about that if they would know. I know years ago we were worried about power lines that went over places where cows graze because of stray voltage and stuff, and I don't know whatever became of that, but it could be something similar with the wetlands. Certainly, if you're going to dig through a wetland, you're going to disturb it somehow, and they don't repair that easily sometimes. But anyways,
I don't know if digging and drilling have different impacts also.
Oh, they're going to do a directional drill under is what you're thinking.
Directional drill is what I heard.
Okay, that's probably better.
I agree.
In any event, the developers have to do wetland delineations as part of their exhibits, and I'll just show you real quick. So when the applicant, so the CS Energy, is proposing this Yellow Barn solar project, again, it's 160 megawatts separated between the town of Groton and the town of Lansing. So 75% or so of the project is in the town of Groton, and the remainder, including the interconnects, are going to be in the town of Lansing. And so these are the exhibits, is what DEC, or Office of Renewable Energy Siting is calling them. And basically, if you look at this, it's basically like a full environmental impact statement that they're going to have to submit with the project. And so you see, wetlands is one of the categories, and another one, of course, is local laws and ordinances. So I want to be careful to note that they will be expected to at least articulate how they are complying with the town's local law, which was passed in advance of the Office of Renewable Energy Siting regulations, actually. So that gives us a little bit of an advantage there. So in any event, this is why we're bringing in, of course, robust staff. One of the engineers on the project for Labella has really deep expertise in the interaction between stormwater and solar, which is really, I thought, very important, especially here in the town of Lansing, and she's super knowledgeable. So
Mhm. Yeah,
Yep.
I'm definitely most interested in that items 10 and 13 on that, soils and seismicity, and then the aquatic ecology.
yeah, we have yeah, that makes sense. And we did request in our comments, at least, Office of Renewable Energy citing that comments from environment conservation advisory councils or conservation boards of the municipalities be considered as part of the review. So hopefully that is considered. So anyway, we'll have some pretty solid experts in utility scale solar who have worked on behalf of municipalities, working for us. So it's really great.
Okay, I'm supposed to give the planning report, but let me start out by saying there a conflict of interest was brought up to me because we did a comment to Dandy Mart, and I did that as a member of the CAC, but we were asked to advise the planning board. And I asked Guy Crow about the appropriateness of that after the fact. And he said, well, you're advising yourself, which raises some questions. And he raised a number of issues. And so I decided one of the things he suggested is going to the ethics board of Lansing, which I did. And CJ recommended I go to the ethics officer of the American Planning Association. And I did that too. And I received information back from the, I spoke on the phone for about a half an hour with the ethics officer, and he basically said, as long as I keep a fair, honest, and unbiased opinion on the planning board, what I'm doing is okay. I haven't heard back from the town ethics committee. I know it takes some time, but I did send them a letter. So I offered originally to recuse myself on the planning board from this, but the chairman of the planning board and Guy Crow and CJ also said, don't do that yet, and contact the ethics board and whatever. So I took that route. And so right now I don't feel like I'm compromising myself, and there is a conflict of interest because we are an advisory board, and all we were doing is giving advice, and hopefully it was rather impartial. So I think I'm okay, but I'm still waiting to hear from the town ethics committee. But I figure the ethics officer for the this National Association of Planners probably knows what he's talking about. So I'm going with what he said. So after saying that, I can't really comment too much on what's going on in the planning board. There's Dandy Mart. We've had good large attendance at the meetings about it. And most people are opposed to it, but we're trying to listen to what's coming in, and we'll see where it goes. One thing, the county had to weigh in, and they said we need to do a traffic impact study. And so that is what the planning board is looking into now, I believe. And the other item that's in front of the planning board is the Village Solars is going to tear down, I believe, 3 buildings and put up 3 new ones that are have more units in it, but that's all part of their, this is like phase 7 or something of this very long project. And the county didn't have any comments about that at all. Okay, so that's it for the planning board, and now we can move on to the Environmental Management Council. David?
Well, I only very recently became a member officially, so there's not a whole lot to for me to say, except kind of, well, no, I can update you a little bit. They don't have an August meeting either, so my first real meeting as a member will be September. I put in, I think we talked about I volunteered to do this in May, and I started making some moves to apply, and that was, I forget what there was some reason why I needed to wait. And then anyway, I waited until June, I put in my application, and July 20th is when I got voted in. So, but I did go to a May and June meeting. I missed the July meeting. But I can tell you a little bit about what, a little bit about what the talk's been at those meetings. Some of you may know more about it than me. There are, I'm not really quite, I'm on a learning curve about where the county concerns about environmental issues, crisscrosses with town of Lansing environmental issues, and where actual legal or jurisdiction issues might come up. And so I'm curious about that. Maybe I'll learn more about that being on this county-wide thing. I'm viewing it mostly as, my impression of it to start with is it's a little bit like there's the CWIO, as we call it, the Cayuga Lake Watershed Intermunicipal Organization, which represents 56 or 57 municipalities in the Cayuga Lake Watershed. And so there's representatives from many of those municipalities, and it's mostly an exchange of information about what's happening in all those different municipalities, looking for opportunities for synergy of grant writing and projects and, that sort of thing. So I kind of think that's what it's about. I just was counting up, I think there's the current list, there are 17 members on this council from various towns, not, all the towns, but we got Dryden, Trumansburg, the village of Lansing, and now I would be representing the town of Lansing, Groton, Newfield, Caroline, yada, yada, yada. So anyway, there's 17 members along those lines. There's one legislative liaison, Ann Corman. There's several associate members, of which Karen Edelstein of our group is one. So I guess maybe, Karen, does that mean you were a member of the EMC previously and now you're an associate member or something like that?
That's right. Yeah, I don't get to go to meetings much
Yeah.
at all anymore, but I do, I do some work on the updating the unique natural areas every couple of years with them, and still have a hand in that. But yeah, this is probably going back 20 years ago. I was a at-large member for several years.
Yeah, they have, there's a couple county staff people, Tompkins County staff, Darby Kiley, I guess it is, and Kristen McCarthy's the person who's been the main contact person I've been in touch with, just about running the logistics of the meetings and the minutes and all that stuff. For me, I view this as, for example, I think it'd be very important, useful for me when we do get to a September meeting of this group. It's, I think, the second Thursday evenings of the month. The September meeting would be really good for me to have a much better handle than I do now on what's happening with this open space index, and informing them about that would be my impression of what this, the expectation of what I should be doing, right? Is that, am I reading that correctly? That'd be the kind of thing I would bring up. I think most people representing these different communities have an opportunity to say a few words about what's happening. So I would definitely at least do that. So in general, that's how I'm viewing it. As somebody with CJ or some Karen or others want to help me inform me more about what my role really is here and what you would like me to be doing, or how this intersects with what the town wants to do, like our open space index plans, or is there times when the county might say, oh, you want to do that, but you can't do that because there's county rules against that, or vice versa? Do the two become, is that something I need to be kind of watching for? Where does that come up at this council?
You know, Dave, it's not really, there's not really that much responsibility other than carrying information.
The kind of
back and
exchange of
forth.
information, right?
Yeah, that I really remember. But sometimes there are, the EMC brings in special speakers.
Yeah,
And
there's that.
like there was a long, very animated discussion that went on for several years about management of forest lands, for example. So, that was something that the county was grappling with. And so, whether to selectively harvest trees or do clear cutting and what implications that has. So there was a lot of sort of grand level information that you could carry back perhaps to us, especially once we have this open space plan, for things that are relevant there, or resources. Sometimes they'll have a specialist who will come and talk about whatever, emerald ash borer or whatever. But then also if there are things like, here we are working on an open space plan, when you do your update for what's going on in Lansing, when they have their little go round, that may be a useful networking tool too, because somebody might say, oh, we just did one, or we're
Right.
thinking about doing one. So it's really more of a network than a,
Yeah, it's an informal, almost informal kind of thing, as I see it, kind of exchanging, looking for synergy. Yeah, and it looks like some, interesting people involved. So I for my own interests, I am going to see. I like being part of a group that actually does take some action of some kind, and not just people who want to hear themselves talk about the environment. Talking about the environment once a month. So I do hope that there's actually some action items, and we really get some things going where we identify, this community and this committee and this have the same goals. Let's get together and we can really make more happen. Or so I'm going to look for opportunities like that to really feel like I'm doing something and not just jabbing away here. But it could also bring up just issues that maybe we haven't thought of that other communities are thinking of that are quite relevant to the town of Lansing, and we've been letting it slide by and not paying attention and seeing what they're doing about it. So I'll try to convey that. Just to convey a few of my sketchy notes, and there are, of course, minutes that are provided sometime after the meeting. Like I thought I would have, I told you I missed the July meeting. I thought the minutes are not out yet, so I guess maybe they're waiting until the August meeting to provide those, but normally they come out in a few weeks. So I could share those with this group, but I think I won't for them unless I have demand for that. You all get bombarded with lots of stuff, but I could always send you the monthly minutes of the most recent EMC meeting if the group likes. For the most part, I'm thinking about maybe just verbally, highlighting some things to all of you. But if you want me to forward the minutes to you, that's absolutely no problem. That's just a click of a couple buttons on my computer. So going back to May, so I didn't even know whether I would really be joining. It was just kind of like, well, why don't you just be a guest and see what it's like, and et cetera. So actually it was a pretty interesting meeting, the May one, just in terms of, we had a really nice talk by Scott Doyle, who some of you probably know more than me. And I forget, he's actually leaving now, right? He's going on to something else. What is that he's going on to? Somebody, it was mentioned there and I can't remember. Anybody know?
He's-
College.
Yeah, CJ?
You got it. Yep. Like John said, he's director of maybe utilities or facilities or something at the college. Really cool.
Okay, okay.
Stoked for Scott.
But he seemed, very knowledgeable, really well put together presentation. Spent a good, 30 minutes talking about a project they've had that, again, in terms of doing something productive, a climate adaptation committee, and really, some countywide planning, some synergy between these communities and different people working on this about looking for, target audiences for delivering information about climate and how it's affecting the entire county, vulnerabilities, types of outreach, developing some one-page talking points. These are kind of some next steps they're thinking about. But he had some very good, data, lots of good summaries of what's happening climate-wise in the county, et cetera. He had mentioned something that Lansing has done, climate rate system. Anybody know about that? CJ, what was that? It was, he just
Yeah.
lauded that as a example of a community doing something relevant to this.
Yeah. So as part of the resiliency and recovery plan, the town of Lansing agreed to do the community rating system analysis, like a baseline of that. And essentially they kind of went through, how we deal with, it's kind of dovetails nicely with, we're getting ready to do the building code effectiveness grading scale right now, which is a whole another cookie, but it's in essence a way to evaluate how the town reviews building permits, does plan review, and especially relative to risky areas, so floodplains, basically. So
Yeah.
there's some great information online about it, and I'll pop the link in the chat if you're interested. But Scott had asked if we'd be willing to participate in that to kind of show other communities that it wasn't too scary, I guess.
Yeah, so he
to
gave a
open
real
up your
shout out
books.
to that. So I would like to see that because he didn't actually share that, it itself. So yeah,
Sure thing.
I'd be interested to have that as background. Yeah, so it was kind of, he basically said, Lansing's done a really good job. And this is the kind of thing I think goes on at this EMC meeting is he was pointing out, this one community, Lansing did this, and it seemed like it could be useful to, many of the communities relevant particularly to this climate change adaptation sort of strategy. Also, his talk got into food resiliency, changing flood risks and climate justice issues and all of that. That's some things on the Cuyahoga Lake Watershed Network that I'm involved with also, were, the kind of thing we're working on. So anyway, that was interesting to me, and seemed like something that really had been a nice accomplishment. A couple, there's some general kind of just there's, I guess the EMC currently is not, they're not in a, they don't think that they need to follow the open meeting law. And so, but they needed to look into that. So there's some issues like that they were talking about. Do we have to, as we do with our town, with our CAC meetings, announce them publicly and all that? Apparently it's not technically a public body. Anyway, so that's a minor detail, though, just something they're working out. A couple of reports again in May from a couple of municipalities that spoke up. Not every municipality had something to say, but Newfield spent a little time, I think, following up on the climate thing that Scott Doyle did, talking about they're really examining in some detail their areas of flood risk and what that might mean for flood insurance for some of their people in their community, and natural areas and water bodies, etc. Danby, they're doing some work on, there's just a lot happening there with solar and farms, and a lot of discussion going on in the town of Danby, I guess, about how far they want to go down the road of solar farms and all of that. let's see. That's all I've got from the May meeting. The June meeting, I can make that more brief. What was interesting there, again, I was happy to see this. It looks like, they're really planning on doing some things, and that is putting their heads together. That is, all these representatives from these different municipalities about how they can work together on some fall outreach planning. And a priority that came up was, of course, now this will sound ironic, but flooding as a top priority in the middle of our current drought. We may want to think about that too. But obviously, in terms of climate change, it is one of the most dramatic impacts we're seeing in our area. So, they're debating whether to they're thinking about actually holding an event anyway, bringing in some expertise on flooding in the region. People who know about the historical and projected future weather patterns relevant to flooding risk in the area, and what people who manage the water flow through the dams, the Cayuga Lake and all of that, how they manage the water in times of flooding, ditches, etc. So they're interested in some of that. Also relevant to that, flood insurance, landscaping, drafting FEMA maps, etc. Another thing they're planning is doing some UNA field trips, inviting all the members of the EMC to join on to visit some unique natural areas and discuss them and why they, issues that how they're being affected and all that. At the June meeting, Danby also again had something to say, just talking about revamping. They're doing a major revamp of their website. Their town of Danby CAC is working on conservation easement education for developing some materials for outreach, basically for the general public, making people better understand what those are, opportunities for that, and what's involved. They're also talking to the Finger Lakes Land Trust about acreage that's abutting the Lindsay Parson Preserve. Newfield, some discussion about some Dollar General site. Let's see. Some redesigning some main intersection near the covered bridge. That's a important landmark. Trumansburg and Ulysses were exploring, I just have in quotes, the New York Stretch Energy Code. I don't recall. Again, I see CJ, maybe you would know what that is. What is that?
Yep, it's just an initiative from the state to have folks adopt building codes with the most stringent efficiency requirements.
Also kind of looking forward to how we can be moving forward on energy efficiency in the community kind of thing.
You got it.
It sounds like, a lot of, at the county level, a lot of, I guess this guy, Scott Doe's leaving, but they are, they have, I think already, check my notes here. Yes, it sounded, if my notes are correct, they have actually they've searched for and identified a new sustainability coordinator for the county, and a new, quote, environmental planner. I'm not sure what that means, but so they made some progress in getting some new people on staff at the county level. There was a fair amount of talk at, a lot of, well, there was an article brought up by a journalist named Peter Mattison about Cargill and its involvement in a major salt mine that was flooded in Louisiana. And this is it had freaked some people out, needless to say. So there was a lot of talk about the salt mine and Cargill, and how sure are we that that's safe? So that's the kind of thing I've got as an update. That was 2 months. Normally I would just be giving you 1 month, and I'll take better notes. I wasn't really official here anyway. But what I missed in July, the real highlight, I think, I don't think it was a really heavy duty meeting, except unless it was postponed or anything, but Assemblymember Anna Kellis was supposed to be there and for a listening session with the EMC. So I don't know what happened with that. That was on the July meeting that I missed.
Anna's had COVID, so I don't know.
Yeah, she dropped out of something else, some other event that I heard about. Yeah. So maybe she wasn't there. So I don't know. Yeah. So I'm sorry I don't have the July. I actually had a conflict there. That meeting was July 14th, and we had a major, one of several family hooplas here at my house on that date, and I couldn't join. But so that's what that's at. I'm moderately enthusiastic about it. I think it's, I want it to be something where I feel like, it's effective use of my time. So but it sounds like things are happening there, and I think I can, bring some energy into it too. And just good. I think it's important for the town to kind of be able to know what other townships are talking about relevant to environmental issues in that. I mean, there's also the, I've given talks to the water, the Water Resources Council. Is that the correct? Yeah. So that's county-wide, if I understand that. So I don't understand where that links. That's a different, that's obviously just something that focuses exclusively on water issues. But some of the members of this EMC, are aware of that committee and things going on there. So I guess also we'll be hearing about things, that at the EMC meetings, I will also be hearing about things such as what's happening with that Water Resources Council, et cetera. So
Okay.
sounds useful. I think it's, if nothing else, just for us to know what other communities are doing, and might create some ideas of things we have not been paying attention to, we should pay more attention to, or opportunities for collaborating with some other municipalities in a positive way. So.
Hey, Dave, could you keep an ear open also if, I don't know if this is a water resources issue or the EMC may end up talking about it, but the current status of dredging, and particularly moving forward, what might be happening with Salmon Creek, because I can tell you, trying to sail out of out of Myers is, I've been sailing sunfish out of there, and it is, it's like 6 inches deep. And
you remember the creek unloads there, right at that
oh, it's just filled in so much. And so I'm personally very interested in whether there is a management plan for what's happening there, and that may come up on the county level.
Yeah, okay. Something on the going back to not just the Cayuga Lake Watershed Network that I'm on the board of and chair of the board, but that entire the municipal intermunicipal organization that focuses on Cayuga Lake. That group has a lot of interest in educating the public and doing some projects focused on, it's kind of a matter of rethinking, all the ditches and culverts we see along our roadways. This is something that there's a person at Cornell, some of you may know, Rebecca Schneider, who's really into this and has kind of been at the forefront of rethinking that. But basically, instead of looking at ditches, just the word itself is like something you don't need to pay attention to. And in my neighborhood, sometimes I see people throwing junk into the ditches, like, half trees that they've cut down or whatever. It's ridiculous. But really making people more aware of ditches as like it's a creek, looking at them as they're not natural waterways, it's true, but they're part of our waterway system in the community. And much of what goes into ditches ends up into our natural creeks and waterways and into Cayuga Lake. And so anyway, that's just kind of high on the agenda, I know. And it was brought up at the EMC briefly, and something that I just know the groups that are associated with water issues are thinking more about. I think we're kind of in the midst of, a little, one of these things where it's could in the end, 5-10 years from now, really be a major change in mindset of all those involved in the ditch systems in our communities. This would include Department of Transportation and others, and coming up with solutions that, lead to, good things for the protection of the water bodies. Having a lot of people have to drain their land for decent, appropriate reasons, farmers, and others. But if those pipes just go directly into a ditch that very quickly goes into a creek, there's a lot of effluent there to think about. Maybe there should be buffers there, that kind of thing. But then just the way the ditches are, speaking of dredging, made me think about it. The aesthetic of a good ditch is one where it's just been scraped with a backhoe is not, I think, where Rebecca Schneider's coming from, to say the least. So anyway, but then it takes, it's more complicated for people who have to really do the work. So anyway, a lot of something there that we.
Well, I think that's, it's an interesting point that you bring up too, because the highway department here does have that, sort of the Brazilian waxing style of ditch cleaning. And it's, the hydroseeding is not always the first thing that they think to do. And some of that is logistics, because their hydroseeders are shared between municipalities and whatnot. But, between the ditch digging and last fall, they came in with this like medieval chain flinging thing that like ground up just way too many trees along the roadside on near vertical slopes, and it's just setting us up for really unnecessary erosion. I think it's a communication.
Yeah, I think there's a lot
that needs to be happening with the highway department, and
and we need to hear their side of it too. I mean, the people who do that work, I know there's all kinds logistical challenges to do that, and they only have so much funding and so many people doing the work. But it just reminds me of years and years ago, talking to farmers used to think that the perfect farm was a farm that was like the soil was like pulverized like crazy, and just smooth as and now most farmers recognize that recirculating your crop residue and not pulverizing the heck out of it is very good for your organic matter in your soil. It's a different aesthetic. So
yeah, Dave, thanks. I got to jump off here pretty soon, but I challenge everybody to go out and stand in one of these carved out ditches. What do you call it? The Brazilian ditches, and just look up at the next culvert and compare the cross section of the ditch to the cross section of the culvert that water has to go through. And actually, next time there's a big flood, just drive up 34 and you'll see every place there's a culvert for a driveway. The water is backed up and is spilling over the road. And so I wish they would quit digging these ditches out. They're making the problem a lot worse. You can't, Dave, you probably know this better than I do, but once you get down into the subsoil, you can hydroseed all you want, but it's really hard to get anything to take at that point.
Right.
And they're way down into that at this point.
Well,
but anyway,
you can use, Todd, you're welcome to use that phrase and not credit me in your next
no
talk.
I'm going to blame you whenever I use it, okay? And it's you can take it as credit if you want. Hey, I gotta go, everybody, but thanks, Dave, for giving us a little synthesis there.
Yeah, thanks for sticking around, Todd.
Thanks, Todd.
Well, I think we're about at the end of the meeting anyways. I did want to ask CJ what the possibilities are of continuing to do this via Zoom. Do you know anything more?
I think that's fine. And Carrie had made that request as well.
Yeah. Okay.
But I can say that Andrew would as expressed some desire to meet in person. And certainly I'm happy to do that. But if this is easy for you guys, then I think that it's probably fine.
Yeah.
Well, part of the problem is Carrie is on Lake Champlain, and it's going to be there, I think, until the end of October.
Town council's position is that Conservation Advisory Council is advisory, and as such, because you don't have matters coming before you, like applications and such that you'd be making binding decisions on. It's, as far as I'm concerned, it's fine for you to meet this way, especially if your meetings are recorded and then, posted online. Folks can also, there's a new kind of agenda and minutes deal on the website where you can see the agenda, the minutes, and then the recording of the meeting as well, kind of all in one place. So, yeah, I mean, if folks want to find stuff about CAC, it's definitely out there. They could even watch the meetings verbatim. So, yeah.
Yeah,
I really
my
like that idea too,
problem is-
especially I'm on
sorry.
3 different groups that meet monthly. And so, all of us are talking about that. It'd be nice to not have to, 3 times a month be traveling somewhere to different meetings, different places. And, I think periodically getting together would be nice. Once a quarter or twice a year or whatever.
Yeah, my problem is very poor internet reception at my house, which
Yeah.
I have to rectify. And the last 2 meetings, I just couldn't get on. I couldn't
Oh,
do it. So I am now in the church office using their
Okay.
connection. Yeah. So I had to get in the car and go someplace anyway, but
No,
I'm
I
fine.
see. Yeah.
Whatever the committee decides, I'm fine.
okay. Thanks, Sandra.
Yeah.
So I think we'll try and keep doing this via Zoom. Okay. Okay, let's adjourn the meeting. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.